A very good evening and a warm welcome to everyone from National HRD Network Pune chapter. It is a pleasure to see you all joining us for the webinar on building resilient future-ready organization through a systemic approach to team development. I am Saima Baghdadi, the chapter coordinator from National HRD Pune chapter, and I'm co-hosting this session with Team National HRD and Arohan Talent Solution. Interactions during the event, a gentle reminder to our panelists a gentle reminder that our panelists will be happy to listen to your thoughts and answer your questions. So please share them with us at any time during the webinar using the chat box. So now let's all get settled and let's make the most of this 1.5 hour so that which we are going to spend together. I would like to invite Mr. Aman Rajaballi, Vice President, National HRD Pune chapter, to introduce our speakers and take this session forward. Aman sir, over to you.
Thank you, Saima. नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल, वणक्कम, केम छो, केमन आछो, बस इतना ही आता है और नहीं आता है. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you after so many months. There's been a break in between for obvious reasons. Quite a few things were happening, but now we've started off, and this is the first standalone event that Pune chapter is conducting. Prior to this, we've had in association with Between the Lines, Upohan. So, but as Pune chapter, this is the first one, so there's a lot of excitement. On behalf of the National HRD Network, I welcome all of you. सभी लोगों का इस्तकबाल करता हूँ. Thank you so much. And I see a lot of new names. बहुत सारे लोग तो पहचान के हैं. But all those people who are not aware of the National HRD Network Pune chapter, one of the great news is that we've recently been awarded the Best Chapter Award at the national conference that was held 2 months ago. So, thank you so much for all your support, encouragement, involvement, engagement, and of course your blessings that you have always showered on us. बस इसी मेहनत और लगन से हम काम करते रहें. Whatever we do is for the community. We try and come up with various programs, various sessions to engage with the HR community for skill development, and whatever interventions that we can do. So quite a few things have been happening at the Pune chapter, and let me also briefly give you a glimpse of the sessions that are coming up. You are also aware that we've been consciously focusing on coaching, introducing the coaching as a skill and intervention in the industry at Pune and Maharashtra and the Western Belt. We have Jayshree with us, who heads ICF Pune. Quite a few people are also there. Analytics has been one of the flagship programs, and we are launching analytics workshop. This is, I think, the 4th season that we're coming up in May, starting off. If you have not received the intimation, please SMS, WhatsApp, email, Google us. We are all around. You can also send us your email IDs in your chat so that Saima can include your details and you will receive regular communication. So analytics, coaching, then we have also certification on coaching. This is in association with Coach Mantra, Arun Waklu and Anu Waklu and the team. So we've been organizing that. This is, I think, the 3rd session that we will be doing, again starting in May. So for us, May month is quite important at the hot month. So hot month for Pune chapter also, for skill development. And one interesting point, interesting session that we're coming up with is a quiz. This is the first time that we are organizing Pune chapter, and we have a gentleman called Murli Pillai. He's an expert in this field. Very soon we will send out communication on that. बहुत अच्छा बढ़िया उम्दा program होगा. So that, and couple of and women's development leadership program is one of the second season that we are coming up with. We concluded one, and it was houseful, a lot of demand coming up, and this is one area that we are also wanting to focus on. A couple of CSR activities that we've been doing. So ये सब बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. And we are also open to support from Anybody wants to volunteer, wants to come in, please, more hands, more heads are most welcome. So once again, on behalf of the Pune chapter, our president, Anand Khod, treasurer, Dr. Neeraj Mankar, Saima, you've met. We have another gentleman, Salil Malhotra, who takes care of the events. Then we have Darpan Singh. You may have interacted with him. Unfortunately, he's not keeping well, so he's not with us right now. Or मैं आपका दोस्त. Welcome you all. And आज का जो session है बड़ा interesting है, बहुत उम्दा है. I thank our lead speakers, Aditi and Saraswati. Thank you so much for offering to do this session for us on systemic team coaching. A little brief about our very interesting speakers. Let me take this opportunity. उनके बारे में कहना अगर मैं पूरा शुरू करूंगा तो it will take me a lot of time. Brief में जितना हो सके, I'll give you a glimpse of their rich experience. But you will know about them as soon as they start off the session. उनकी जो काबिलियत है, उन्होंने जो इतना काम किया है, okay, for over these years will be obviously आपको पता चल जाएगा. Aditi Malik is the founder director of Arohan. She is an accomplished and dedicated professional backed with 27 years of rich and diverse experience. She has held senior positions in private and multinational banks, a high-performing strategic thinker. She has over 19 years of experience in banking and financial services, and 14 years of focused work in L&D and talent management. So imagine who best can be, to talk about this area. Apart from various other experiences that she has had, she was the head of business development and chief talent officer at Morgan Stanley. And that was the time when Aditi decided to take the entrepreneurial jump. Welcome, Aditi, to the entrepreneurial club. She ventured out on her own as an independent consultant and executive coach. For over 8 years now, she has ably offered end-to-end learning and development solutions to a veritable list of clients. She has attended the workshop on Blue Ocean Strategy under the aegis of INSEAD, INSEAD. She has also attended the Empretech Trading Workshop, a workshop on entrepreneurship under the aegis of UNCTAD, Geneva. She was one of the 23 delegates from India to be selected to attend the maiden workshop for India. Wow, congratulations, Aditi. Apart from the rich experience, professional background that Aditi has had, Aditi is an avid reader, loves traveling and enjoys listening to music. She lives in Delhi with her husband and is a mother to young adults. Apart from that, there is a list of certifications that she's had. And let me tell you, the certificates runs like, it goes beyond my screen. A few of them have been MBTI, Hogan Assessment Tool, Executive Coaching Results. She's also been part of the ICF. So in short, that's Aditi. Okay, and now we move on to our next speaker, Saraswati Anand. Saras, as she is fondly addressed as, she has 21 years of experience as a whole systems transformation, 33 years as an executive coach, 15 years whole systems and systemic team coach practitioner. So that Saras totals to, I think, 21 plus 10 plus 15. Wow, you started your career at the age of 5 or what? But jokes apart, with over 25 years of experience, Saraswati partners with senior leaders, teams and organizations in their journey of whole systems transformation. The many roles that she plays in this journey are those of coach, consultant, and facilitator. Her experience spans various industries such as manufacturing, IT, pharma, supply chain, consulting, advisory, etc. Since 2006, Saraswati has built her experience in leadership and executive coaching with over 3,500 hours of coaching. Wow, my compliments to you, Saras. She is an accredited professional certified coach, that's PCC from, again, ICF. She is pursuing her journey towards becoming a master's credentialed coach, sorry, that's MCC. She is a systemic team coach practitioner integrating her experience of whole systems transformation. Yet again, who best to teach us and talk about systemic coaching and, Saras and Aditi. She has held board positions on the ICF Mumbai chapter as secretary and programs director. Saras has been a key member of LSIP community in the country as a certified consultant and facilitator. Her work as an LSIP specialist is rooted in the tenets of whole systems thinking. Apart from all this that she has authored, the self-assured leader, a real-life coaching story selected from across India, published in the book Power of Professional Coaching. So, ladies and gentlemen, more about coaching can pick up this book and read. Coaching Works, this another write-up that she's made, Insights and Leadership Development through Group and Individual Coaching, co-authored article published in NHRD Journal 2016. So you have a connect with NHRD. Thank you so much, Saras. Saraswati is a skilled basketball player and sings for pleasure. She lives in Mumbai with her husband and 2 daughters. So thank you once again. And I, on behalf of all of us, I welcome Aditi and Saraswati. Yeah, and now I hand this over to you. It's been quite some time. Our audience and I am waiting. So Aditi, all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amanji. I often say that with introductions like this, it's just added pressure on people like us, because suddenly, we feel thrown at the deep end of the sea and said, oh, we really have to live up to some of the things that have been said about us. But thank you so much for this opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be a part of this forum. It's a pleasure to interact with all of you and to also bring in this reasonably new discipline on systemic team coaching. So we're very, very delighted, and I think I say this on behalf of Saras as well. We're very, very delighted to present some of our thoughts on what systemic team coaching really is. And of course, also be very, very happy to answer your questions and some clarifications. So I'm sure we will be able to collectively learn some today as we go ahead. Now, this is a very interesting quote that that we thought that really summarizes the approach to working in teams, right? Working in teams is not something that is new. It is something that we've spoken of for time immemorial, the importance of working in teams. And yet we feel that there is this whole space where, how we invest in developing teams is possibly an area which is not understood in its true essence. And that is what we really want to bring to the fore today. And before we go there, before we really get into the unpacking of what systemic team coaching is and how it contributes to building sustainable organizations, we're very curious to understand what got you interested in today's session. So I'll give you all a couple of minutes to type in your thoughts into the chat box as to what got you interested in joining us for this session. And I have Prateek, who's supporting us today. So Prateek will then just kind of distill that, and we will see what are some of the themes that are emerging. So I see the first response in there very quickly, which says, uncertain times need a different approach. Yes, Pramod, I would tend to agree to it. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, and how, right? So I guess. So last, I think that's I'm not sure if that's a question, but what you're saying is our thoughts on team development in the current pandemic situation. All right, so that got you interested in today's session. Sure, Sangram. So you're curious to know about the systemic approach. Thank you, Lata, for that. I'm sure you can inspire us in return.
We can leverage the collective wisdom that's there. Thanks, Lata.
Probably give it 30 more seconds for some more thoughts to surface and emerge. Sure, Amol. So information about the systemic approach to teams. All right, so thank you so much for those responses. And of course, you can keep them coming. Thank you, Prateek. You say uncertain times, team development, is the systemic team coaching overview and information. Yes, and of course, inspiration. Thank you so much, Prateek, for that. I think what we will do is we will start at the beginning, right? So we're talking of team coaching, but the beginning is really to say, what is it that makes a team, right? And we're going to have some scenarios that we're going to put up on your screen. We do want to engage you all and get some responses going over here for that collective learning. And there will be a poll that will prompt on your screen along with that scenario. And please do, choose your option. Also, based on the option that you choose, we would also request you to validate why you chose the option that you choose. So here's the first scenario. My apologies. So here's the first scenario. You're walking to work and suddenly a thief snatches a handbag from a woman a few paces ahead. You take pursuit and are joined by several other people, including two who cross the road to cut off the thief's escape route. Acting together instinctively, you catch the thief. Are you a team? Avinash, if you can have the poll up here, please. So it started from being reasonably evenly poised, moving in that direction again.
And it almost seems like there is a rethink, right? You could see the way the graphs moved.
They're moving, yeah. I agree. We have about 30 responses, okay. It's quite a close call, isn't it, Saras?
Yeah, certainly looks like that.
Looks like that. So 59% believe that this is a team and 41% say this is not a team. So let's get some voices in the room. We'll invite one person who said yes to tell us why you say that, yes, this is a team, followed by one person who said no, and why you say that it is not a team. So you can unmute yourself and please share. So any one person who chose to say yes.
I'm Amol from SigmaCon. Because of unity, we cannot achieve any things or any targets. Not a single person can do any task. So team is very good for that case to doing any work or job among each other. So unity is a very important as per my point of view. That's why the team is very important.
So in this scenario, you're saying that this is a team? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I already said it's yes.
Okay, you said yes. All right. All right, and that's your case because they're unified by a common goal is what I'm hearing you say. That is why you believe that it's a team.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amol. So can we have one person who has a different point of view, who says that, no, this is not a team, and validate why you think so?
I am Satish here from Bangalore, and this is not a team because it was, randomly it happened. It is not with any purpose or, which is pre-planned, and it is not going to last. Another 5 minutes, everybody is different, and there is no definite objective there.
Right. So thank you, Satish, for that. And that's interesting, right? So you see how we interpret the working in a team. So you're right, Satish. This is not a team because while there is an apparent purpose, which seems to be unifying as what Amol shared, but there is no thought behind the team really coming together, and it will get disbanded. Well, even possibly that may not be the reason for not being a team, but you said the duration that it may get disbanded within 5 minutes is your reason. Having said that, there is no real need for this team to work together. So the fact that there's no underlying need that seems to emerge. So thank you so much for those inputs. Let's look at another scenario as to what you think about whether in this scenario it's a team or not. So you're a sales team of 7 people. There are 2 star performers of the entire organization belonging to your team. They invest time and effort in strategizing and executing, which helps them achieve the highest sales month on month. Is this a team? So Avinash, can you have the poll up again, please? And let's see how we get the responses this time. All right, this seems to be fairly evenly poised again. And there are more leanings towards the fact that this is a team. Give it another 30 seconds. All right, as the poll closed, wonderful. So we have now 63% who say that, yes, this is a team, and 37 who say that this is not. So again, let's follow the same drill. One person who said yes, why would you believe, what's your reason for saying that this is a team? Anyone who voted for yes?
Hi, this is Nisa here from ICMR College. I feel this is a team because it is a well-planned activity which has resulted into a success story which can be repeated throughout the organization.
Okay, lovely points there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nisa. And may I now invite one person who believes otherwise?
Yeah,
or thinks otherwise.
Yeah, this is Janvi here from SigmaCon. Yes. I feel this is not a team because it tells only about 2 people who are more strategic and they execute the achievement in a very high manner. The team works collectively together, and everybody part of the team puts in the same efforts. So I don't think this is a team.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. And we would tend to agree with you there that by virtue of the fact that the top performers are vested in their individual performance and not contributing to the success of the team as a collective or as a whole is what goes in the favor of this is not being a team. While of course all the other points that Nisa mentioned are in place, right? That it is a well thought out, there's a structure to the team, they have come together, there is also a purpose, which is about delivering numbers. But the fact that it is not a collective effort means that this this possibly will not qualify as a team.
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Let's go on to our third and last caselet. And this one is, you have come together to set up a new medical charity. You bring complementary skills and experience. Some of you are clinical experts with an interest in the condition. Other members are people who have the condition or relatives of those who have this condition. Is this a team? Just the same question again. Avinash, if you can have the poll up now, please. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you so much. Oh, so we have more people who say that this is a team now. It's nice with the timer there. I didn't realize there was a timer till just now. Okay, so now this time it's quite a skewed result there, Saras, for us. We have more people leaning towards saying that this is a team.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
All right, so that's what it is. All right, so 73% of you say that this is a team and 27% of you say that this is not. So we will open the floor up again and seek some insights. One person who says that this is a team, what would be your reasons for saying so? And one person who says that this is not a team, your reason for saying
Hello.
so. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, this is Chandrasekhar from Agri. Hello.
Yes,
Hi.
yes,
Hi,
Chandrasekhar, go
Chandrasekhar.
ahead.
Hello.
Please go ahead, Chandrasekhar.
This is this is team, ma'am, because any motivation which is monetary or in the form of non-monetary, which will improve individual skills and experience as an individual and the whole team performance. The matter is that how we motivate the team in the form of monetary or non-monetary. So I think this is a team, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Chandrasekhar. So you're saying that because
Concern to skills and experience. Yeah. Yeah.
So if I've got you right, is it you said that there is the monetary reason and a non-monetary reason, and because it's non-monetary, is that why you're saying that this is a team?
Some are giving in the form of monetary means money, suppose in the form of.
Okay, I think it looks like Chandrasekhar dropped out.
Yeah, I think we just lost him.
Aditi and Saras, this is Janvi. The only thing why this is a team, because it has a common goal. They all work together for a common goal, like how the team works. Irrespective of which background they come from, they are working for a medical charity. Irrespective, even they are the people with the condition or the relatives who have the condition, or somebody is a clinical expert, but the goal is common, so it is a team.
Hi, this is Swati here. Just to add to what Janvi said, I also feel that it is a team because they have complementary skills, which rules out competition. So a healthy team should not have internal competition. So because of that, I feel also that it is a team.
Thank
Hi,
you,
Amol
Swati
here.
and Janvi.
I am agree with Swati and Janvi. I'm Amol from SigmaCon.
All right, thank you, Amol. And I think Shilpi wanted to say something.
Yes, this is Shilpa here.
Yes,
I
sir.
think this is a team because the main three members, the clinical experts who are interested in the condition, so the key three stakeholders have a vested interest in the cause of the medical charity. So that's why they make a good team. The family members, the people who have the condition, and the clinical experts who are treating that condition.
All right, okay. Thank you so much for that, Shilpa. Saras, would you want to take this on? Yeah, hi, who's that?
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. This is Ullas here.
Yes, Ullas.
Yeah, as to my thought, it is not a team at all. Because when team works, it works under in the spirit of association and with the common goals. So I don't mind association and common goals in this team, because everybody is contributing with their conditions, and it is complementary. It should not be complementary. It should be a common or equal.
So this is what
So when equal contribution is there, it is a team.
So I'm hearing you say that there is not equal contribution and therefore, and not some common goals. I also heard some people say, yes, there is a common goal. And I also heard that people say that, you know, there are complementary skills. So the reasons for being a team that I heard people say is that there is a common goal, although there is one part that says doesn't, there is not a common goal. They also say that there are complementary skills, and people are you know, allied, whether they are relatives or having that condition, or you know, people who have these you know, clinical experts. So there is some kind of a alignment that is seen. So that's what makes it a team, and that's why for this particular scenario, it was almost 73% vis-a-vis the 27%. Right? So Aditi, why don't you actually help us understand what really is a team then? Right? We've all been, you know, going around in circles trying to figure out what really makes a team. Let's have a look at, you know, what does theory actually tell us?
Yeah, and we will get into the theory in just a second. And I think that you really gave me that segue, Saras. Thank you for that. In terms of the distinction between a working group and a team, right? And it is possible for people to come together and work towards a particular goal, but that can also happen by being a working group. That does not necessarily qualify that collective or that structure to be called a team. So there is a clear distinction that emerges, and there's a choice as well, right? The structure, we can choose which is a structure that we want to be. Do we want to be a working group, or do we want to be a team? Because the structure that we choose has a bearing on what is the outcome going to be like, and also the potential of this collective, right? So if the working group can actually deliver on the outcome that they have in mind, that just may suffice for it to be a working group and not necessary for it to be a team. Having said that, there will be certain pain points that will possibly emerge in the way they work and will also impact on the performance and may not be able to take the collective to its full potential. If we really want to be able to exploit the potential of the collective, there is a case to say that structurally it may benefit us to be in a team structure as opposed to be a working group. So what does the theory say? As Saras just pointed out, this is what the theory says. So Katzenbach and Smith, who published this famous book called Wisdom of Teams, say that a team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, performance goals, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. So the things that you see here underlined are the necessary conditions for the structure to be called a team. So if you reflect back on the case slips that we presented, what was the size of the team? Did they really bring in complementary skills? Did they also have a common purpose? Did they know about how they were going to perform? Did they set those performance goals and how they were going to do it?
We can't hear you.
Sorry, is this any better? Am I more audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, sorry. And also the place for them to be mutually accountable. Now, when we talk about the size of the team is an interesting element as well when we talk of being in teams in terms of the structure. And the Jeff Bezos quote kind of comes to my mind, and he says that if you need to order more than 2 large pizzas in a team meeting, then possibly your team is too large. And it doesn't really qualify to be a team. And the reason for that is because the larger the structure becomes, the more difficult it becomes for communication to flow across. Now, when communication flow gets hampered, that also hampers the understanding of that common purpose and the performance goals and the approach. So a lot of these things are sort of interdependent in that sense. And when we talk of complementary skills, that is really about saying, what are the different skills, the diversity of skills that can come together for people to bring them together and create something larger, right? So the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that only happens when everybody brings in their own bit, right? So that diversity becomes really important. And last but not the least is they hold themselves mutually accountable. This means that there is both individual accountability as well as the space where they are able to hold each other accountable. Stephen Covey in his 8th habit talks about a cadence of accountability, and he talks about execution quotient. What is that rhythm that the team can really create in terms of the space, in terms of the environment where the team can collectively hold themselves accountable and each other as well. When we talk of common purpose, and Saras and I often have this conversation, around this, is there is one thing to say common purpose and the other is to say shared purpose, and maybe it's semantics. But the way, for example, I understand this is that when we talk of sharing, it is about being equally vested, right? Everybody signs up to it. That is what the relationship with that purpose really is about. And of course, clear milestones, right? So performance goals and how it's going to be delivered is about the approach. How is it that, what will be delivered and how it will be delivered. So, a lot of the confusion that we had, like in the caselets that we discussed a little while back, is that when we don't have all of these conditions, it actually may stifle productivity and performance, right? And that is what gives me the segue into the piece of why the focus on teams today. So it is not like organizations can't exist without a team structure, right? And yet we're increasingly talking of teams, the existence of teams, the understanding of why we need to have teams. So there are two parts to this question. One is, why do we need to have teams? And the second is the relevance of it today. And some of you, of course, also put it in terms, right at the beginning, saying what got you interested is that in the current scenario, in the times that we live in the dynamic world, in the complex environment, how do we really focus on teams? So why is this newfound focus on how teams really work? And teams are central to how organizations function. So it would be fair to say that teams are the conduit to achieve organization goals. So we have for a very long time focused on individuals and we focus on organizations, right? Having said that, there is this space in the middle where the teams exist. The team brings that conduit of how the performance of individuals starts to come together, become that collective. As we said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and then take the organization to that, elevate the organization to that higher level of performance and results. Let's take an example over here to understand this a little better, right? And look at the first point, which says it is an effective way to organize complex work. And the metaphor that we would like to talk about over here is how hospitals work. Now, in a hospital, there are people from various disciplines who exist, right? And when a patient enters a hospital for care, the patient is going to be interacting with a multitude of disciplines during their stay in the hospital. In fact, research says that on an average, a patient interacts with at least 60 people during their stay in the hospital. Now, what are the different disciplines? So there's pathology, there's radiology, there could be a surgeon involved, there is nursing, there's housekeeping, and so on and so forth. So at any given point in time, there is a collective from these various disciplines who are attending to the patient. Now, the goal is very simple, right? The goal is patient's care, taking care of the patient and hopefully making the patient well again. So it is how this collective is going to choose to operate for that larger purpose. Because the organization's purpose, the purpose of a hospital is to take care of the patient, right? How is this collective going to come together? How are they going to bring in their complementary skills? Because they're all from various disciplines, with that common purpose of taking care of this patient, with very clear goals, and still hold each other accountable. That is how the very complex work, because taking care of a patient, there's a life that is at stake, right? That's what patient care is all about. It needs that kind of level of accountability. So the most, and this is an example of how we can, how all the complex work or the nature of complexity can be organized into effective results by teams, by a mindset of teaming, by the collectives coming together as a team. So teams are the basic building block of any intelligent organization. In fact, to me, they're the single most important denominator that binds people to the organization and its results. And as organizations have evolved, right, what has also happened is that we've had hierarchical organizations. And those hierarchical organizations may not have looked at the structure of teams, right? There's this very interesting research by Deloitte, which talks about the hierarchical organization models are being turned upside down. They're being deconstructed from the inside out. Businesses are reinventing themselves to operate as networks of teams to keep pace with the challenges of a fluid, unpredictable world. Now, the world that we live in is volatile, it is uncertain, it is complex, and it is ambiguous. And the structure of teams has also evolved, right? That's also changed, as we've seen in the last 1 year. The teams have become virtual, we become international, we become multicultural, we've also become matrix, right? So there's a fair bit of complexity in the environment as well that is existing today, which brings in the focus of how that mindset of teaming needs to be harnessed, that collective intelligence needs to be harnessed. And what that does is it provides us with the bridge. It provides us with that activity. So everything great happens everything great that happens in an organization happens in teams. There was a research, I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of it, the Project Aristotle that was conducted by Google, where they actually studied 180 teams within the system. And what they were studying was, what is it that makes teams successful? And what emerged was that what makes the successful teams is that they had clear goals, they had very clearly defined roles, there was meaning that they ascribed to the work that they were doing. There was safety in the way that they were interacting with each other. There was clarity of goals and what was required. And there was also dependability as well as interdependence. So when people are part of a supportive community, they are more engaged and more productive. Being in a team provides a sense of community. It provides a sense of belongingness that supports the integration of interests, and by putting aside the differences that people may have for that larger purpose that the teams are really set out for. So I see a question before I hand over to Saras. Yeah, Satish, you said WIM is virtual, international, multicultural, and matrixed. Pramod, I hope that you have that question as well. WIM, virtual, international, multicultural, and matrixed. That's right. So I think just to kind of conclude that piece, while I was distracted in terms of looking at what the questions were, that if any organization wants to succeed in time where speed and innovation are paramount, we have to have a culture of teaming. Because unless there is a culture of teaming and a mindset of teaming, it is very hard to navigate the complexity that we see today. And we will delve a little more into it Saras, would you want to take it on from here? I see that you're on mute, so I'm just kind of calling it out.
Thanks. Otherwise, at least once in a Zoom call, you have to speak on mute, right? So thank you. Thank you for pointing that out to me. So what we're going to do is, and Aditi, I hope you'll be moving the slides as we go ahead, right? So I'm taking a look at the time, and I know that the focus is for people to understand what systemic team coaching is about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what are some of those conditions which are required for a team to be effective. And Aditi, maybe you could just click so all of them appear and I can talk through them rather than just taking one by one. And I think the most important piece that I would really like to talk about here, which is very helpful, is to know that while we are talking about teams and we say real teams, and Aditi has already spoken about it, you can only manage so much, right? So therefore your team size is very important. And so that you can collectively show your own performance. And what is the meaning of having a real team? It's about ensuring that the tasks are real, where people are coming together. They have the resources, they have the information, so that they can work on that piece of work together and ensure that they complete that. So that's what constitutes a real team. I think we've already spoken about compelling purpose, so I'm not going to get into that. But if you notice in all those three scenarios, there may be the words of goals and purpose were kind of used, interchangeably. So if a team is a team, they all have a compelling purpose that they work towards. And compelling means that it is clear, it has consequence for them, and it is challenging for them. And therefore, there is a one direction that the entire team is moving towards. That's really the compelling purpose. It has to be inspirational as well. Therefore, it has to be compelling. Teams need to have a shared approach, an agreement saying that how are we going to work together? What are going to be our norms? How are we going to, review stuff? And what's really the kind of work protocols that we need? So those are the kind of agreements which helps make teams be effective. And similarly, it's about saying that, do they have the resources that need to get them to do the work? And here are 2 points which I'm going to come up with, which are slightly different from most of the stuff. I think most of the other stuff we know. It's about how teams engage with stakeholders. So stakeholders externally and stakeholders internally. Given that we are in the VUCA world today, and given that we've all gone through this pandemic, and there were a lot of questions saying that, in this kind of scenario, what do we really do? I think it becomes more and more important for us to be engaging with our stakeholders who are outside of our team, stakeholders who are within the organization, and maybe even stakeholders who are outside the organization. I'm going to give you a little example of this. This is a project that I did with a large EPC company, and the top team actually had a great growth path that they were looking at. They had some very ambitious growth goals there. And as they were looking at this growth goals, they actually said, how are we going to, get our top team to figure out, what's going to make this so important, and how can we get some perspective from other people? And they decided to look at, can we call in the voice of a stakeholder who's in the larger system, that is their competition. And it was quite surprising for them that competition actually agreed to come and have a word with them. This competition was the global best, and they agreed to come and have a word with them. And the top team in this case, what they discovered was they wanted to know from their competitor, what is it that they can do better in terms of best practices, etc., so that they can actually achieve this growth path that they've set. While they were talking about this, one of the top team members actually asked the competitor, saying that, hey, you're a competition. Why did you actually agree to come and have a word with us? So they were quite surprised to figure out. The competitor said, I don't consider you my competition. And when that happened, that was the blind spot that this team had, that the top team had, where they thought they were the global best, but the global best, or at least competing with the global best, but the global best did not think them as competition. That kind of changed their entire mindset. And therefore they used that data to figure out what is it therefore I need to do to accelerate my growth, be on that path of growth sustainably, so that I can become the global best, and the competition will come back and say that, yes, you are my competitor now. So I think that helped refocus, the top team and their entire growth strategy. So that is just an example that I wanted to share with you as to why engaging with stakeholders for teams becomes very important. And the other aspect of teams is, which is very relevant in today's times, is actually how is that team learning and growing? Typically what happens, we all have review meetings, and those review meetings are about what has gotten done and what has not gotten done. So it's always about performance versus actual and so on and so forth, or whatever we set as targets and so on. But what is it that we are actually learning together? And here is where I think the example that comes in is another project that I did, and this was in the pharma industry with a manufacturing organization. And the excellence team actually wanted to bring about certain excellence practices, processes, so that the entire organization again will be aligned towards growth and improvement and quality products, and therefore achieve the market share. So they were all, there was a cascading connect with that. So when they decided to actually have the entire team sitting in together, what they learned from the team, and this they learned from people who are on the ground. They learned from people on the ground saying that over the past 3 years, we've had more than 100 such initiatives, out of which possibly 60 are there in some form and shape, out of which maybe only 5 or 10 are actually working. They actually made a list of this. And when they made a list of this, they realized that it's not about bringing in another intervention. It's about saying, what can I do with the intervention that is already existing so that I can create the same effect? And therefore it becomes sustainable, not like 100, out of which 160 struggling in some form or shape, out of which 5 to 10 such interventions only doing the job that it's supposed to do and people following it. So I think this was the collective learning that this team really had. And that becomes very important for today's teams, particularly when things are changing. They're all sitting remotely. It's becoming more and more important, right? So if these are the conditions, or these are the requirements for being effective. And by the way, that was taken up. That's an adaptation from Ruth Waggoman and Hackman and Peter Hawkins and David Clutterbuck's work. Just as a source that I wanted to tell you. And therefore, what is it really about teams and team performance, right? It really seems to be performance is an output, and an output of something, right? So it's an output of, in fact, I really want to say, when I was sitting and looking at this and reflecting back on my experience as a coach, I realized performance is all about action and behaviors. Right, and that's what it also applies for teams. It's about the actions and the behaviors that they're taking, which helps them create this performance. And those behaviors are behaviors of engagement. And therefore, what this slide basically says is, when you have teams which are very high on engagement, they will also deliver high performance, because there is a focus on a compelling purpose which is collective. So they're focusing on collective processes to make sure that they're able to deliver that performance. There is also a sense of collective leadership, and they're having those kind of conversations, those kind of engagement, which they would never have had. That's what really is the top right-hand corner of this particular slide all about. And when you do that, when you engage in that kind of a manner, which helps you deliver that performance, the team starts building capability. So it's not just about 2 people in that sales team who are able to, in that scenario that we just presented, who are able to present their own performance, but it's about looking at how can the entire team have a compelling purpose for which the entire team will work together and deliver that. And that compelling purpose can be even over and above the goals and the KRAs that are typically set, as an organization part. Not that you don't pay attention to it. Of course you do. That's what is going to be the basis of measurement. At the end of the day, it's also about saying that how can we, all our actions, be working towards this compelling purpose, which keeps us united to be engaged and therefore deliver high performance. Right? So if it's about the performance and it's about the engagement of these teams, then let's take a look at, why are we therefore talking about team coaching? And I still realize we still haven't told you what is team coaching all about, right? And we will come to that. I just want to build the case to say, why do you need team coaching, right? At the end of the day, I'm also wearing a business hat. So if I were to just look at that and say, why is it that, we should, or we could look at team coaching? I shouldn't say, I don't think I should use the word should, but so why should we look at team coaching? Is about the crux of it all is about the performance. At the end of the day, dhande ki baat hai, and wo to rahegi hi. While that is there, is it also enabling the team to build in that agility? Because there is information that rests in various pockets of the team, but they're able to communicate that faster with the whole, and therefore build in that agility to respond. And I think one of the best examples here is about the hospital example. And in hospital, it's the nurse who's reading those sheets, right? Saying that, how has been the vitals, what has been the medicines that's been given, what's really happening. So it's that person who knows what's really changing minute to minute. Is that information being translated to enable this team to use that information and therefore build in that agility that is really required? And therefore the other aspect is also saying that, okay, so while it's about performance, while it's about agility, it's also about, can we do things differently? And therefore innovation. Can we do things differently? This is a tried and tested method, yes. But is there a need for us to look at a different way of doing things, right? And if this is what is at the core, it's about all these benefits that you see around this core, which actually builds the case for team coaching. So now that we've said this, and I'm not looking at the chat in case there's anything in the chat, you can maybe point that out to me. I think now the next most important thing is to address is, what is team coaching? Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you, Saras. Yeah, so what is team coaching? I do realize that we have quite a few coaches over here, and it's very interesting. Coaching has, of course, found a relevance over the past 15 years, right? And still we've been talking of coaching more from an individual perspective. And I think the premise for that has been that if we develop individuals, they will, through that individual development in their own personal journeys, inherently be able to navigate working with others. And I think that is where the whole focus on team coaching has come. That's the kind of the paradigm shift that we are really wanting to bring to the fore today. So like Professor Peter Hawkins, he very famously says that a team is a living organism, and therefore it needs to be treated as a single unit. We have to be able to focus on the team as a unit and not hope that because we have coached individuals, they will therefore be able to navigate and work together effectively. Yes, they will be, but they will be able to do it within that limitation of their own self, right? So therefore, bringing in that whole collective, we're repeatedly talking about harnessing the collective, we're repeatedly talking about bringing in the collective capability, right? And that is where the definition of team coaching really emerges. So IF defines, the International Coaching Federation defines team coaching as partnering in a co-creative and reflective process with the team and its dynamics and relationships in a way that inspires them to maximize their abilities and potential in order to reach their common purpose and shared goals. When you read it the first time, it seems to be very similar to what the definition of individual coaching is as well, right? So the definition of individual coaching also says that it is a process of working with the person that we are coaching for them to explore their potential so that they're able to, achieve their goals. Essentially, that is what coaching is. So while there are similarities between the whole individual coaching and team coaching, which I would instead of saying that individual coaching and team coaching, as a discipline, coaching per se is about going on that journey of exploration to maximize potential, explore abilities, maximize potential, and unlock the tapped resources. So that's the fundamental of coaching. Where the added nuance sort of comes in when we're talking of team coaching is the skill that gets involved. Because when we are working with a person, then we are only working with an individual, right? So the scale becomes from an individual to a collective. Now, in a team, it is obvious that there will be different personalities, there are different skills, people have different viewpoints, they have different thought processes. And we've also spoken somewhat about, making that space for conflicts to emerge, and positive conflicts to emerge, as well as more conflicts to emerge, right? And that is the complexity that comes in when we work from a team, from the lens of coaching a team. Also, the relationships within the team. We are human beings, and there is a certain dynamic that plays out. So how do we really navigate that relationships within the team? And as team coaches, it's kind of a discipline that we work with to see how can the team put their differences aside and still work together in that collective. And as Saras just said about, she spoke about the compelling purpose, the intention is to reach that common purpose and that shared goal. So the fact that it all has to come together in a collective, that is really what team coaching does. That is the basic premise of coaching the team as a collective is all about. So navigating gives us that opportunity to, while working with the collective, it also throws up that opportunity of working with individuals. Saying is, how will they come together as a collective, right? So that is team coaching. So Saras, I hope I did a reasonable job of explaining and defining team coaching here.
Absolutely.
You're on mute.
Yes, I realized that I did it once. So yeah, thank you for that. And one is, I do notice that we do have many coaches, and today the awareness and understanding of coaching is also increasing. So what I have noticed when I've spoken to people, when I'm talking about team coaching itself is a very nascent concept, so to speak. When I say nascent, in India, I think people are still trying to understand, or they don't even know what team coaching is. Globally, yes, they have been team coaches, and they've been working on team coaching for the longest time. But the number of people who are actually team coaching are fewer, which goes to tell us that team coaching itself is not picked up like wildfire, like the way individual coaching really has. And
I'm sorry.
And therefore, I thought it was important to really look at what is the distinction between these three. So, Aditi, you want to?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just going back to, I think I pressed something.
And Lata, you actually hit the nail on the head. It is one of the fastest evolving spaces in coaching. And thank you for sharing that. That's a very, very, great insight to have. And yeah, and I'm just waiting for Aditi to.
Sorry, technology. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I didn't mean
While
mean
she
that
brings that up, let me at least start, explaining what that is about. So, what I've heard used interchangeably is group coaching and team coaching. One. The other thing that I've also heard people use is team building, right? Because team building is something we all know, right? We've all been doing it. We've all experienced it either as participants, or people who are organizing for it, or people who have actually done it, done team building activities with organizations and teams and so on, right? What you would notice is that while there is a theory and there is a definition of team building that exists, and there is a definition of team coaching which exists both in ICF as well. there is no definition of the group coaching per se, right? But anyway, that's not such a major distinction, right? The major distinction is really about the following. So whom are you coaching? You're actually coaching an individual when it comes to individual coaching. When it comes to a group, you're coaching the individuals in that group. So what does that mean? Why are you making it so complex, Saras? It's not complex. What happens is people come there for a common goal that they're all aligned to. Let me give you examples. When you've had, let's say learning journeys in organization, and you want to strengthen that learning that's happening in the organization. So let's say there are competencies that you want to build, in a particular area. You could have groups that come back and have conversations around one particular theme. Let's say it's strategic thinking, building strategic thinking capability. So you can have the group focused on that particular theme, but every person's path in that journey is very different to reach that goal. Therefore, you coach the individuals in the group to reach that goal. And incidentally, ICF says that 15 is the number. My own experience says that if you have about maybe about 5 to 8 people, that itself is a lot, because you are dealing with different journeys that you are. But the focus is on each of these individuals. Right? The second thing that's also makes group coaching slightly different from the others, and that is about duration. Duration that happens in a team building is typically, you have 2-3 days, 1 day, 2 days, whatever but it's a short-term duration for which you have that, team building event. Group coaching also could happen over a period of, short to medium term. You could decide, it could be over a period of 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. Pretty similar to how we would structure individual coaching. I think the difference here is that group disbands. So they don't have to come back and work together. And I think that's one of those things that got pointed out in the scenarios that we shared earlier. So when people, in that team, when they were all running to, get that thief, catch the thief who stole the handbag, they all came together for that purpose, but that group is not going to stay together. That's what essentially made them a group rather than a team. So they will disband after a certain point. Whereas in team coaching, you coach the team. I think that is the first basic difference. And why I'm emphasizing it almost a little dramatically is because when you're coaching the team, you're actually building the team's identity and persona as well. That is why you don't coach individuals in that team. You're coaching the entire team together as a team. Therefore, it has an identity. Therefore, you decide what is the compelling purpose that this team wants to create, and for whom should this perform? Who will be a judge of saying that this team is performing well vis-a-vis person A, person B? This team is performing well. Who's going to judge that? So, who are the stakeholders that you need to connect with? So, those are the aspects that go into team coaching to build the team and its identity, so to speak. Right? It's also the process is about a partnership. In fact, one of the taglines that I tend to use is collaborate to co-create, right? And that's something that applies very beautifully here, because you are, in the circle with the team. If you were to imagine the team as a circle, and they're having a coaching session, then it's like a circle that they're sitting in. You're sitting in that circle. You're not outside the circle. You're not inside the circle. So the conversation is happening within the group, amongst each other. You as a team coach are there to enable these conversations to happen. So does that mean that, okay, so now you'll say, okay, I heard you. Now, do you want to say something? If you're continuously doing that as a team coach, then there is something wrong, right? So therefore, it's about how do these conversations happen amongst the group themselves. And now this kind of also helps you understand. So psychological safety, that's something that needs to be worked on. People need to be able to share their points of view. That is the environment that team coaching helps create. So that then this team is able to put out their points of view and have a meaningful conversations to decide, how do they really want to help themselves as a team. And therefore, it's not something, if you were to decide what is the purpose, if you were to figure out, okay, so whom do I need to figure out from? Is my performance as a team good? So, there is obviously a connect with stakeholders and so on. So the duration is longer, right? It doesn't happen, like a team building event in about 2-3 days or whatever. It happens over a longer duration. And those are the essential distinctions between these three. You want to move ahead?
Yeah. Thanks, Saras. And because that is what we want to do, when we have to create that, build the team identity by bringing in that whole stakeholders perspective, that is where the whole systemic view comes into picture as well, right? So what we mean by a systemic view is to be able to have a multi-layered perspective. There is a system that exists within the team. So there is a way that the team functions. There's a dynamic within the team, and there's a system that sort of emerges. But there's also a system that sits outside of the team. And every system is nested in another system, right? So it is not like the team exists in a larger functional unit, for example. So there could be a receivables team in the larger finance function, for instance. But that finance function, which would be the system which is surrounding this team, may actually be sitting in that organization. So there's an organization system. The organization exists in the larger environment. There is a whole regulatory environment and so on and so forth. So as we've seen, like what has happened in this past 1 year is I think a classic example of saying how businesses got impacted by something that was completely out of their control. Right? There was something that was happening in the wider system, which had a bearing on how the organization was going to perform, which then has a bearing on how teams are going to perform. But if teams are still going to will still continue to be more and more inward looking, not taking the context of the other systems that are existing around it, it is unlikely that they will be able to work effectively to meet that organization goal. So we established a little while earlier that the role of the team, the team is the conduit. It is the conduit for individual performance coming together and leading it to the organizational success. And that can only happen when we bring all the systemic view in perspective. And there are two things that we talk about over here. One is the whole outside in perspective. So Saras has spoken a fair bit about it, so I'll not spend too much time on it. Where she's spoken about stakeholders, right? How do we start engaging with stakeholders outside of this team? So there are stakeholders within the organization, but there are also stakeholders outside of the organization in that wider environment. Getting that outside in perspective becomes critical for the team to really say, how are they operating? What is it that is going to be delivered? Who is actually going to be receiving what they do today? So that is one perspective, one lens to look at. The other is the future back. And when I talk about future back, she did again touch on innovation, right? How does innovation happen? Innovation is all about what will the future really need? What is it that needs to be today created which is going to deliver for future organizations? So having that future foresight, like in whole systems thinking, we often talk about this. The reason we want to have a whole systems thinking approach is because there is a high likelihood that today's solutions end up becoming tomorrow's problems. And how do we overcome that is by taking in a future back perspective, right? Taking that kind of a long view of sorts. And that also happens by taking in this whole systemic view of saying, where are these various systems nested? What is the dynamics, the interplay of the dynamics in these various systems? And when the team is able to factor all of that in, is when they are able to come up with how they're going to be working to deliver something that is really long lasting. So we don't want to be in a situation where it is just about the here and now. Yes, it is about the here and now. It is about delivering for the present, but it is also about delivering for the future. Because we're talking about organizational sustainability. We are talking about organizations being purpose driven. There's a lot of these things that we are talking about. How are we aligning that? What is the purpose of the organization? And that has to cascade. And how is a team then going to align to really create that legacy or enable the organization to become sustainable? So that is the perspective of those lenses and the systemic view coming into play.
Thanks, Aditi. I just wanted to add one small example, and this is from one-to-one coaching. Just to understand the perspective of taking the largest system. And even in one-to-one coaching, we actually do system coaching. So here I was coaching the senior leader of a financial services organization, and the issue got manifested in time management, but the root cause was a belief that was held with respect to a value of customer centricity. So if that is a broader picture, one of the things that the leader decided is that he is going to delegate more and better. That was one of the actions that the senior leader decided to take. So as a coach, I've worked with the senior leader, and I've also worked as a consultant with the organization on other aspects. And what I did notice is in this, in the other work that I did with the organization, was that being an owner-driven organization, and I don't want to use it as a generalization, but this is what I noticed here. There is I'm tempted to say there is a way of leading where you're actually getting everybody's perspective, and then you decide, right, what needs to be done. So the question that I did want to that we had conversations around with my senior leader, the one whom I was coaching, was about how are you going to help while you're delegating? How should you empower the team, right? And I realized as the conversation happened, the empowerment was with respect to how the leadership style of the organization or from the top actually came, and that's what actually cascaded. Well, it's working well for the client, it's working well for his team, and it's working well for the organization. But that got me thinking how these kind of larger systemic things can actually permeate and therefore create a context for the person whom you're coaching. Similarly, it happens with teams. I know that the slide that is up right now is actually talking about where all can you use systemic team coaching. I'm only going to leave it with these points, saying that definitely performance issues. Definitely, if there are relationships within the team, which is an issue. If the team wants to elevate its own performance, or the team decides they want to do, redefine their purpose and direction and so forth. I have had the following reasons for which teams have reached out to me. The context was top team, business turnaround situation. That top team that needs to work is always a cross-functional team. Now, how do you create an alignment within this cross-functional team so that they're able to respond to the business with agility and in a collective manner? So I think that was one of the contexts that, just to give you an idea as to where you could use systemic team coaching as well. Aditi, if you can move to the next slide, because I think these are important. And there was one very important question that I also saw in the chat.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea as to what, therefore, the journey looks like. That's why, I think we've been also a little careful to say this is a journey and not an event. So it's really about, like we would do in a one-to-one coaching, there is an understanding of certain data points. And that's what happens in the first part, where you're actually looking at really what are those data points that is required for this team. And therefore putting that data points in front of this team to say, what do you want to do about this, right? And that's what is the entire diagnostic, and therefore coming to an agenda and team agreement. Right? And then therefore, if this is what is going to be our purpose, and this is how we are deciding to engage with each other, this is how we're going to be, then putting it into practice, observing them, how they're working, seeing, what are those things that are coming up. And this entire conversation between, actually it starts from discovery itself, but when you do from diagnostic to execution, these are all sets of conversations that keep happening, right? And that's what the team coach actually sits and is part of this team to ensure that these conversations are had, right? if you can move on to the next one. Yes, I think that's a
So there's an interesting question from Jayashree, which says, so I was like holding my breath saying that we will get here very quickly.
And thanks for asking that, Jayashree, because I must share with you the first team coaching assignment that I had. I failed miserably, royally. And the reason why I failed was, in my profile, Amanji read so beautifully and long, right? He also said that I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm also a facilitator. That's where the problem came, because I decided to be a facilitator in a team coaching setup. Right? And that's where the challenge is. Do you use certain facilitation skills? Of course, you do use those facilitation skills. But does that mean that's the only thing that you're going to be used? Absolutely not. Does that mean that you're going to be using this throughout? Absolutely not. You're always wearing the hat of a coach. And the biggest challenge for a team coach and a systemic team coach is when you're having these conversations with all these people, because one-to-one coaching, you're talking only about one person. In group coaching, you're focused on an individual at a particular point in time. Now you're coaching the team. And if you're coaching the team, then it means that the entire dynamics you have to be alert to. You have to be present to. Because it's that, and all those people, number of people who constitute that team, you have to be aware of that. You're also being aware of how the system is actually impacting this team as well. So the presence of a team coach needs to be very high, because the scale at which you need to operate is very high. In fact, that's why they recommend for team coaching, you should have 2 people. But because for a person, and that's where I royally failed. I royally failed the first time when I actually tried to do team coaching, is because I thought I could do it virtual. What's a big deal? And virtual also creates its own hassles. And yes, co-coaching, absolutely, Lata, that's what co-coaching or having 2 coaches works brilliantly well here, so that you can actually balance this. So being present to what's really happening, also understanding everybody has their own journey even in this. So their own learning journey is very, very different, right? And there are also a lot of subgroups which are there and some team dynamics which are going on. So all those things make, systemic team coaching something that you need to learn, you need to practice, and you need to really build, competence for. I'm right now on the path of MCC, and I've realized, and I've been on this path for over a year. And the reason it's taken me over a year is because that's what it takes. I mean, at least my journey was like that. So similarly, in systemic team coaching, it does take that journey to be able to handle all these dynamics. The easiest thing to do is to slip back into being a facilitator. And therefore, how do you catch yourself not doing that? One more thing that I do want to, there are lots of knowledge and skills given there, so I'm not going to repeat them. I'm only going to talk about one of the essential things, that is confidentiality. You are going to have conversations with each of these individuals, and you have to hold them well. And that becomes a big challenge in team coaching. So you're coaching the team, you are privy to certain sharings and conversation. At the same time, how can you hold that confidentiality and still bring it to the larger team for them to consider? If this is a source of information or a source of data point for me, what should I consider? So I think that's also makes it challenging, also makes it something that you have to learn, practice, and therefore get to that stage.
If I may just kind of build on another thing, Saras, while you were talking about this, is that it's very interesting, as team coaches, our experience has been that it's fraught with a lot of, kind of traps and risks of sorts, right? There are so many times that as team coaches, we can be expected to be mediators as well, right? And that's not the role that we have to play as team coaches. I remember Saras talking about, being, in the circle, but letting that, not saying, okay, now you talk and now you talk and now you talk. It is about enabling the conversations among the team members and getting them to a stage, kind of working with them and enabling them to become that one unit, or whatever is the ways of working that they want to establish. What is the agreement that they want? What is the team charter, for instance? And therefore it is, while it is multi-hatting at various times of those, engagements, nothing takes away from being a coach and the complexity of being a team coach. So I thought I'll just kind of add that, Saras, while you were talking.
Great. So I was actually typing in a response to Sangram, who asked, just to clarify his understanding, that if you integrate outside in an innovation with team coaching, then it becomes a systemic approach. Just to clarify that, systemic approach is to be aware that the individual themselves are a system, and you have teams which are you have the team as a system itself. Then you have outside of the team, which is within the organization. And then you have other aspects, which could be the culture, which could be the legacy and so on of the system. And it could also be the external, which is totally outside. Could be a customer, could be a competition, could be your suppliers and so on. So actually looking at all of that. And future back because it's about being prepared for the future, right? You don't want to be preparing for the current when the immediate next future has shifted. Right. So therefore, you also take a look at saying that I'm going to be investing this kind of time, effort, and money. So how do I make it worth my while to create it from a future back perspective?
Sangram wanted you to be a little louder, Saras. So,
all right. So does that mean I have to repeat all of it, or
no? If you could just. So I hope, Sangram, you're good, and just in the interest of time, maybe we could engage with you separately. I think just to kind of very quickly put it together. What Saras said is that the future back is about being ready for the future. We don't want to be working only about the today and the now, right? The now and the present. Because you put in all the time and effort knowing that the future has shifted or the expectation in the future has shifted, and then we're possibly not geared for that. There's another very interesting question that I see that has come up here, Saras, which is talking about. Yes, Amanji. So I think we're already taking questions. Sorry, we didn't really announce. So we're very happy to take questions at this time. So Shilpa has a question. She says, does team coaching eliminate the need for an individual coaching intervention? And if I may attempt answering that, and Saras, please feel free to jump in. I'm not sure if it's the right thing to say whether we are eliminating the need for individual coaching. I don't think that is what we're saying. I think what we're saying is that when we are coaching the team, we have to be coaching the team as a collective and as a single entity. Now, on that journey, there may be opportunities for individuals to also seek coaching for themselves. And that could be a parallel thing that will possibly continue to happen. But the whole team coaching lens says that we will be coaching the team as a collective single unit. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Any other questions? We will be very happy to take them at this time. No worries, Shilpa. Thank you.
Thank you, Lata, for your kind words.
Thank you, Lata. So I guess it would be only appropriate to kind of end with this very interesting quote, right? That no matter how brilliant your mind or strategy, if you're playing a solo game, you'll always lose out to a team. And it's very interesting, when I started to look out for the images for teams, it's very interesting how many crisis-related teams work really well when they come together. So that was one thing that we've been kind of dwelling on as well. And I think the kind of crisis that we're in today is possibly what is also shining the light on the need for team coaching the way it is, right? Team coaching is today where possibly individual coaching was 15 years ago. That's what Saras mentioned, right? That it's a nascent discipline. It is still kind of finding relevance and getting socialized among people. So, which is one of the reasons why when we were invited by NHRDN to talk about this, we were absolutely excited, and we said, why not? It will be so good to talk about this. Thank you, Amol. Great. So I think since we're not getting any questions, probably we'll just hand it back to the NHRDN team. I think we must really thank Avinash and take a very quick moment. Thank you so much, Avinash, Saima, for supporting us throughout this entire, the preparation, getting to this, and the seamless execution of the session that we've had today. And of course, thank you, Amanji, for the opportunity and the trust that you imposed in us in terms of sharing some of our 2 bits around what systemic team coaching really is. So over to you, Amanji.
Hello, Namaskar once again. We have our colleague Anand Khoth online. Anand, are you there?
Yes, Aman, can you hear me?
Yes, Joe.
I think this is the most common statement nowadays, right, on all the calls. And the most important thing to start with in the team coaching, Saraswati and Aditi. So good evening, folks. Thanks a million to all the participants who are here. Aditi and Saraswati, special thanks to you for making this session for NHRDN. And as Aman mentioned in the initial conversation, that we are trying to work on some of these initiatives in a very systemic manner. And I think we can also celebrate that this is the first team coaching session we have done, under NHRDN Pune. So thanks to both of you, Aman, and the NHRDN team, Saima, Avinash, for making it happen. We should be able to do more work on this area, because individual coaching, a lot of people are pursuing in their own capacity. There are organizations also investing in it, but end of the day, it's very difficult today to accomplish a big enough goal, if you are not that person who can really understand the team scenario, dynamics, and strength, and then plays to it, right? And we can always see that's a key differentiator for the leader, and those leaders cannot be standing alone and outside of the team. So with all of those things, it's a very valuable skill to have, and the valuable skill to take to the masses. So thanks to you for making that journey begin with all of us here. Participants, I'm sure you have taken good amount of insights from here, and you will plan your steps ahead. Continue to stay in touch with us, with Aditi and team as well, for your journey. I just want to call out that we have a big event coming up called Diversity and Inclusion Summit, which will be happening on 5th of June. It's a global virtual summit, and all of you can imagine the importance of diversity and inclusion as a topic, and how team coaching or individual coaching can play a big role in that particular domain. So we are working on creating the agenda for that, and we look forward to all of you contributing and learning from that event as well. So with that, we can call it a very valuable evening for all of us. And we once again thank Aditi and team and Saraswati for today's session. Thank you very much. We can close the session now, Avinash and Saima. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Aditi, I need to log off. There's another session happening. Is that okay?
Sure.
Amanji,
Amanji,
may I send you something in chat in the meanwhile?
Aji.
Or maybe, I was just curious, did we have actually Mr. TV Rao join us?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, what a, oh my God, I don't have any words. Yeah. And I mean, if you do meet him, we are absolutely blessed to have had him be part of the session. Thank you so much for his presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amanji. You have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, and please convey my regards to your team, Pratik and Peter, and the other people that will later.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.